The Mets are swept in Philly as they lose 8 straight. The Tigers, while great on the field, have a mess in their front office. And the Rangers, once proclaimed dead on this very show, have maybe risen from the grave. As we go around the league looking at this week in baseball, we take a look at our underrated stat of the week, which is saves, or underrated story of the week, which is saves. We go to our stat of the week. We're looking at perfect games and drive lines, which are not things that both happen in the game, but they're not what we're talking about. It's This Week in Baseball. Well, as we sit here on September 14th, as we have done through for more than one team upon this season, I think it is safe to sit here and proclaim that our New York Mets, as they continue to compete against the Rangers here on Sunday, even if they do this in this game, are dead.
They're dead. Well, I tried it with the Rangers, right? I declared the Rangers dead,
and it didn't work
a few weeks ago, and then they rose from the dead, and now they're playing great and beating the hell out of the.
Maybe it'll work for the Mets, and if not, we're correct.
It's so bad, Met fan, and people that listen to this podcast know that we're diehard Met fans. I went to the game Friday night.
Mistake.
My buddy Mark, said, "Hey, I got a ticket, and somebody can't go." So very nice, invited me.
We had a great day playing golf.
DeGrom was going to pitch,
and then he went out and did that,
and we got the cheer for Jacob DeGrom, and then he destroyed the Mets himself. And it's so bad right now that it is a 2-2 game in the 10th inning,
and
we abandoned watching the game to come up and do this podcast.
Our thinking,
I can't watch anymore.
We expect them to lose, and if they win, it'll be a nice surprise. So yes, we are very worried about that. And there's a good chance right now that they miss the playoffs.
Yes, they went from 95% chance to make the playoffs like 2 weeks ago to now under 70%. It's so bad that as a Met fan, I almost don't even want them to get in the playoffs because I wouldn't want to watch them get their teeth handed to them.
Right, and unlike last year where everything went right for them, this is a year where many, many things have gone wrong for them. And really, outside of the young pitchers coming up and Juan Soto, everybody else on this team has had issue periods throughout this year. Pete Alonso has periods where he's been great and periods where he can't hit a baseball. And unfortunately, that's a common trend with a lot of guys on this team.
They're an incredibly streaky team. Unfortunately, everybody streaks downward at the same time, and then the pitchers can't hold up when the hitters do hit. And it's been a nightmare season for the Mets. So if you're a Brave fan, right? If you're a Philly fan, you're kind of going.
No, I don't think the Brave fans are having much fun.
The Brave fans love to watch the Mets suffer. Come on,
right. But they've been suffering even more than us this year.
Their year is different than the Mets' year. Like in the Braves, once they got Sales injured half the time. They lost Austin. They had just incredibly injured team and could never get out of their own way.
You could at least hopefully write this off and just go, it was a terrible year.
I have more faith right now in the Braves being a better team next year
than the Mets.
Than they were this year than the Mets.
I think that's fair.
That's right. So anyway, for all this, we had to talk about it. It's been a nightmare. It's agony to watch. It's agony to watch baseball when your favorite team is blowing.
One of the things we talk about all the time is what is more tolerable as a fan? Rooting for a team that pitches well but can't score, or a team that scores but constantly gives it up because their starters or their bullpens. And we can never really agree on what is a more frustrating thing to watch.
And here's what's remarkable about the Mets.
And they do both.
They're both.
The games, they'll have games where their pitchers show up and then they cannot score a run, and then they have games where they score, but then their pitchers give up 4 runs in the first inning, so they're never in the game.
I feel better getting that out. I don't know why. Right. It's been a hard. 8 straight losses. They may lose 9 in a row. Then they're off. They can't lose tomorrow.
Right,
the day off. There's 12 games left after this. They are still in the playoff hunt, but I don't want any more of this. Please make it stop.
Right, and I think the one thing that you could kind of say about this year is that it doesn't really feel like any team is playing that well right now. Like, there's nobody that I'm looking at that feels like a complete contender at the moment.
Okay, so here's what I'll say about that. The Blue Jays have impressed and surprised me because they've actually been very solid. I saw Gaussman almost went through a Maddox on Thursday, so that he had 100 pitches instead of 99 and the shutout. They are maintaining their lead over the Yankees, who are playing well. And they've won the first 2 against the Red Sox. And Shane Bieber threw a great game here today on Sunday, and that could be a huge thing for the Blue Jays.
They have 2
you didn't count on Shane Bieber being a big time pitcher in the playoffs because he wasn't even on the team until a month and a half ago. So I think the Blue Jays actually are a good team, and I'm almost willing to believe that they're going to be one
class.
of the playoff. I think they and the Tigers are probably the two best teams right now in my mind in the American leagues.
I mean, the Tigers, I think everybody had being there at the beginning of the year, but who would have picked the Blue Jays Tigers as the ALCS?
And Scooble left the game for the Tigers Thursday after a couple of innings, but apparently he's going to make his next start. So that had to have all the Tiger fans go.
The same way, it's around this time of the year that it kind of goes, Skenes struck out his 200th batter, but then they pulled him after 5 innings and only 64 pitches. He's under 2.0 ERA again this year, but they're kind of being like, okay, wait a second, we still stink. We can't risk you blowing out your arm for games that don't matter.
Right. The Pirates are so bad. I don't, if the old, the Keith Hernandez's, the old time baseball guys are like, how do you take him out of the game? It's only the 5th inning. You got to let a guy pitch. It doesn't matter. The season doesn't matter for the Pirates. It's over. The Pirates, and Jason Stark had this. I got to read this stuff on the Pirates this week. This is crazy. So the Pirates, as a team, they have thrown 17 shutouts this year,
which is stunning.
That's a lot of shutouts.
Most
right?
of baseball.
Now, I don't know how many have been complete game shutouts because maybe 1 or 2 in that.
Right, probably not 17.
So it's the most in baseball, okay, and the bad news is, as Jason Stark wrote, the games in which they make a mistake of giving up a run, they have 147 and lost 82.
So basically, the moment a run gets across the plate against the Pirates, you got a really good chance of winning.
And then the Pirates have also swept series, and we remember this as Met fans because they swept the Mets earlier this year. They swept the Dodgers. They swept the Phillies. These are going to be the National League playoff teams.
They swept the Tigers.
The Tigers, the Giants, they're vying for the place. The Cardinals were pretty good. So they're 18-0 in those games against those teams.
Those series.
Okay, the bad news is in all the other games, which, as Jason Stark wrote, Major League Baseball is going to count those other games. They're 46-82.
Right, and it's interesting that those two things, the shutouts
are so
and
close,
mirror each other.
So that's why Paul Skenes,
right, is so valuable because he's basically almost a win for them whenever he goes out there.
And I would say that Skenes could sit down for the rest of the season, 2 weeks, 12 games, and he wins the Cy Young.
Oh yeah,
it's over. The Cy Young is over in the National League. He is the winner.
Blake Snell might have the highest K per 9 for starter in MLB history at 11.2, but his second half has not been so magical this year. He's getting it over Skenes.
But those Dodgers, you mentioned another team the Dodgers are playing the Giants this weekend. They got a game this afternoon to hopefully win that series as far as the Dodgers are concerned, and as the Mets are concerned too. Actually, Mookie Betts looks better. Freeman's looking better.
Ohtani puts up his 5th straight season of 8 WAR.
Dodgers are putting it together at the right time.
Right.
I wouldn't want to play them as the Mets, by the way, and that's where you're going to get if you're going to play them. They're going to be in the first round. So the Brewers are still sailing ahead. Going to be the number 1 seed, I think, with pretty much.
The Brewers are just because of the way they went out last year, and because they haven't had any other deep postseason runs. Unfortunately, they're a prove-it team in the postseason.
Yeah.
They have to go out and probably win a series, maybe 2, for people to really start talking about them like they're a World Series contender.
I buy that. And the Phillies, the Mets, when they went into Philly for the 4-game series earlier this week, they were 7 games behind the Phillies.
Now they're 12 and a half.
Well, they're 13 games behind now.
They lost now?
Yeah. The Phillies lost. So this 12 and a half. It went from 13 to 12 and a half.
Right. We don't know. We still
don't know about the Met game. It could be back to 13.
Right.
I mean, so they had a chance to cut it to 3 games. Had they swept the Phillies in Philadelphia, that's funny.
Yeah.
And they lost, and now they're 13. I mean, not that the division was really in play, but you're so much further behind.
You had a moment there where it could have been,
right.
And then it just went in the complete opposite direction.
Meanwhile, wild card wise, you've got the Padres that are in good shape for the wild card.
The Cubs are in perfect shape.
The Cubs are in shape. So you're fighting for that 3rd wild card between the Mets, the Giants, and the Reds, I guess. Still, don't know what's going to happen. It's 12 games to go after today for the Mets and 13 for other teams.
Because is there a universe where the Mets go 11-2 in their last?
No.
I mean, probably not. But it is out of the realm of potential things that happen. Mathematically, it is still a chance for them to do that.
And in the American League, the Yankees are comfortably in wild card position. The Red Sox have taken a little bit on the teeth so far this week, and they'll play the Yankees tonight. But they're also comfortably at the same record with the Mariners, who that whole field has a few games on the Rangers and other teams like that.
You're going to get a lot of fun going in for the end because the Yankees look like they've got their postseason spot more or less locked up.
I'd say that's
require
true.
Them really stumbling down.
They're playing like the Mets.
Right. They'd have to kind of pull Mets here going down the stretch. The Guardians have gone 9-1 in their last 10, and they've played themselves at least into a world where they're in that discussion along with the Rangers. They're only a game back of the Rangers.
Yeah. That's
now
let's not discount them.
2.5 games back of the wild card. You're in the wild card race with 12 games back.
100% agree with that. And we talked about the Yankees and we talked about Anthony Volpe and his struggles at shortstop this year in particular, and with the bat as well. And Caballero has come in and played some shortstop for the Yankees, and he's got lots of steals and lots of speed. And you wonder, is he the guy? Is he going to supplant Volpe in the playoffs and be the shortstop over Volpe?
Anthony Volpe wants to survive the winter, that'd probably be the best for him, because the Yankee fans might actually kill him if he starts in the postseason.
Well, I think the defense.
I know we can't really joke about stuff like that, but he's that bad.
Defense is a problem there. So
unfortunately, he's almost unplayably bad at shortstop. Now, I am sure he is not as bad as he was when he was clearly in his own head, but there's no way you can look at him and say he's a good defender.
But he came up as a good defender. I mean, 2 years ago, he was one of the better fielding shortstops in the league. How does a guy drop that much? It's confidence, I think, right?
Combination of confidence, of poor overall team defense. I think, unfortunately, as okay Judges in center field, he's also not great in center field. And Jazz at third isn't great next to Volpe.
He's a second baseman. I agree.
He's much better. They've had a rotating door at first base this year. Their third base has been a rotating door until they got McMahon. Now I expect, which is what I figured, is once McMahon came in, Volpe would probably settle down a little bit. He just happened to go through his worst period right after he got there. But it was a weak defensive team that really only got better at third base.
Yeah. They're still like.
Right. Anytime there's it's not like Cody Bellinger.
Bellinger's good. Bellinger's good.
Yeah, right.
And Judge, when he can throw, is a very good right fielder. He's well above average, one of the better right fielders in baseball. It just seems like the ball finds the places that where the weakest fielder is, particularly in the Yankees. Saw that happen last year and a few times this year.
And I can only imagine that, unfortunately for the Yankees, that's going to be on their minds when they get to the postseason.
It's certainly going to be on the minds of the teams playing them.
Right, every team knows, hey, we just got to put the ball in the field against them, and they will make mistakes.
I wanted to bring up a comment we got from a listener and somebody who reads stuff that I wrote, and we did bases created per plate appearance.
Yes.
So this guy Mike wrote in and said, I think that Ohtani and Judge might be having like really good seasons. I really hadn't looked at that really. We did that 2 years ago. This bases created. So basically that means you're adding singles, doubles, triples, walks, and then stolen bases minus the ones you're caught on to come up with the total bases. The only thing we couldn't figure out, if you remember, is if a guy goes first to third, it's really hard to track that. You have to go into game logs and do that. So that don't include that. But the all-time greatest guys in that in career are Babe Ruth and Barry Bonds,
right?
Not surprisingly,
right?
And they had a 750, 760 career, and that's as of this week. Judge had a 768.
Well, no. The Judge had a 768 bases created per plate appearance. Ohtani had a 706,
and Bonds and Ruth were 750.
Okay.
I'd done some research, so. That is historically good, and those guys are so as good as you think their seasons are. They really are that good. And Judge is got a ops plus over 201, I think, earlier this week.
He's going to join Ruth Williams and Mickey Mantle, who are the only players to have 3 or more seasons with an OPS plus
if he can hold on to it.
More, right? You got to assume he will with 12 high games. But you know what? It only takes a couple bad games to really sink you in that.
And so is he the American League MVP over Cal Raleigh? Because there's really only 2 guys.
Really depends on how they make the play, where they.
I tend to think you're right.
The thing that the problem,
if the Mariners don't make the playoffs,
it goes to Judge, because the thing is that as much as you could say, well, if Kyle Raleigh is not on the Mariners, they don't make the playoffs. That goes probably doubly for Judge, which is maybe even why I give it to him more. Because if he didn't play like a superhuman for the first couple months of the season, I legitimately don't know if the Yankees make the playoffs.
I kind of agree with that. And again, when you've got a season that's up there, and you're talking about guys like Ted Williams and Ruth and Mickey Mantle. Right. You're like, okay,
Kyle Raleigh's hit 50 home runs plus as a catcher. That's really cool. It's not one of all-time great offensive seasons like Judge's had.
Well, he's batting 240. So
Judge is batting close to 300,
320,
right?
330.
Right, exactly.
So we did have some other hitting exploits from some of the also ran teams, and we don't really talk about teams. And our friend Mark Stevens, who wrote the book The Fireballer, very, very good fan of the show. And he so just for Rockies fans, because he's a miserable Rocky fan, because everybody is a Rocky fan is miserable these days. The Rockies, have you seen what their run differential is for the season?
It's nightmarish.
So the team with the worst run differential, they've been outscored, is like 120 or 130.
Right. Okay. So the Washington Nationals, which everybody knows they stink. They're not good this year, and that disappointed me because
they've underperformed a little, in my opinion, too.
They are the second worst run differential team in the majors at negative 174 run differential. For all those people, they're the second worst. The Colorado Rockies,
not 200,
are negative 394.
That means that they've almost been outscored by 400 runs this season. So that's
the difference.
Crazy.
The difference between them and the Nationals is greater than the amount the Nationals have.
Exactly.
The difference would be the second place
So
team.
Sorry, Rockies fans. You've got a couple of players. You got the catcher there who's had a good season. If I can remember the guy's name.
What's really hurt them is not only have they been by far the worst pitching team, giving up almost they might give up 1,000 runs this year, which is unheard of. They've also been one of the worst offensive teams on top of
That's the thing that you can't understand, right? They're like Colorado. I keep saying this,
you
get a bunch of mashers
you
there.
You can understand it when you look at their lineups. They're trading out a bunch of guys there that can't hit.
Was Charlie Blackmon that important? So, another team that we don't talk about very much because I did pick them to finish second in the division, the A's of Sacramento. They are not going to finish in second place in the division, but they've actually had an okay season overall. Nick Kurtz, who's going to win American League Rookie of the Year, probably over his teammates.
Right. Well, he's come in and been great, and Wilson's kind of faded a bit.
A little bit, but still had a really good year.
As dominant as he was in the first half.
So Nick Kurtz on Saturday night hit the longest home run in more than 2 years in Major League Baseball. It went 400.
Was it the grand slam that he hit?
493 foot. I don't think so. 114 miles an hour off the bat. And this guy is this is the guy next year who's going to vie for the American League home run title.
Oh, for sure.
So Aaron Judge, watch out because Nick Kurtz is coming for you.
He also plays in Sacramento, which is a big advantage.
Well, and home run wise, yes, certainly so. And for all those fans, Met fans and all that stuff, you might have something to look forward to. Besides the playoffs, the Arizona Fall League starts in less than a month. So maybe you'll see some prospects that might be in Met one day playing there because your team is probably not going to be playing.
I think one of the few things Met fans have been able to enjoy this season is actually a relatively good year from their elite closer in Edwin Diaz. He's been a guy that when they actually get a lead into the ninth inning, he's able to lock it down and get the save. I mean, really more often than not this year.
Well, very, very much so. He's had a very good year in he can walk after this year, and he's a $20 million a year closer.
Very interesting
so
to see what he does.
Very interesting to see if the Mets will continue to pay him
that
number.
Because I think one of the things that you might say is how much value do saves have on the open market right now? Are they a little undervalued?
Well, I'm going to say yes, and I challenge you, and I don't know if you looked it up or not, but so who is leading the major leagues in saves?
That's a tough one.
Don't look.
See, normally up until this point, you could have guessed Helsley, but he's not there.
Yeah, sorry.
So my guess is probably who is ever the closer for the Toronto Blue Jays.
That's a good guess. It is not. I think Jeff Hoffman is the closer up there. It is Carlos Estevez of the Kansas City Royals. With 39 saves. And by the way, most baseball fans, and we're pretty good baseball fans, don't even know who Carlos Estevez is unless you're a Royals fan. Right. So you don't. So the fact is that a guy who's got the major league lead in saves, it's like, oh yeah, is there a guy like that? What's his name? Who does he play for? And so it made me think, as you described, like are saves so underrated right now because or undervalued, and I think they are undervalued. And I think that being able to pitch at the end of the game and pitch successfully, and we've seen this, is still really, really important. And you don't have to necessarily have big numbers in saves.
Talk to the Phillies after they got Duran and how much better they feel about their World Series chances.
Great point.
Because that is something that I can give them as an edge in a series against the Dodgers. I don't know who the Dodgers
Tanner Scott.
Right, who's
not been that great.
Right. He's not a lockdown end of game closer the way Duran has been.
And I wrote a piece on Goose Gossage this week saying that his Hall of Fame career is somehow underrated because even though he had the 300 saves, and that's not a number like, Rivera had 652. So is Rivera twice as good as Gossage? No. And Gossage just was crazy in terms of the multiple inning saves that he got when he played. You don't do that. They wouldn't let Rich Gossage be Rich Gossage today.
You wouldn't have a guy come in and throw three innings like that.
Yeah, you just do a shutdown and he throw another one. You know what? That was good. Throw another one.
So, right. So I think what teams might not value is maybe the save stat because you can replicate it. Look at the Yankees. Bednar has 24 saves.
But he came from the Pirates with some of those saves. Right,
but Williams has 18 saves. Like, they have a bunch of guys. Like, you're able. It doesn't really matter who between Doval.
Right, so
Bednar
being a 57 save guy.
But being a guy that a team can rely on to come in the ninth inning and lock things down and be like, we need 3 outs. Go get us those out. I think they very much do value those guys.
Who's got the all-time major league record for saves? Do you know?
By number?
Yeah, who's got the most saves in a season in major league history?
Wait, most in his individual season?
Individual season.
Isn't it Francisco Rodriguez?
It is K-Rod. Excellent. 62 saves, and he broke Bobby Thigpen's record, which was 57. 62 saves. No one's getting that. That record might stand forever.
Because part of the thing with saves is the same way we talk about derivative stats that sort of come in, like we call RBIs a derivative stat at times, because RBIs are as much a function of team success as individual success. Saves are a function of team success as anything else. Because
you mean the Rockies aren't going to have a save leader?
Exactly. Think about it. If the Rockies pitcher saved every game they won this year, he would be leading the league in saves. But like he would have to save every single one to be leading. Even if he sold, that would only be leading by 2. They only have 41 wins. Yeah. So it's just not easy to get that many saves because you win a lot of games by more than 3.
Sometimes you win by more than the runs for a save.
Right, and we had streaks like that on the Mets early this year where they were winning a bunch of games and Diaz just didn't need to pitch in those because they were up by a bunch.
But I think it's still, you want that guy. Like, are the Yankees confident that Devin Williams in a clutch situation is going to shut them down? No. I don't think they are. And yet he was, before last year, he was the guy,
But that's the thing with closers and why it's hard to pay them a ton of money on long-term deals because they're so mercurial in a sense. It's very common for them to be unhittable. Like as the Phillies, it has to kind of lurk in the back of your mind, like, oh, there's a chance that Duran comes back next year and is just not anywhere as good as he is.
They don't need it next year. They need it this year.
Exactly. That's the thing with closers is that they are probably the best piece on your team to 1-year rent.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why giving Diaz a 5-year contract
was kind of crazy.
And I guess that's kind of worked out for the most part for both parties.
Really, yeah. The Mets only could look at that, go, yeah, there was the bad year due to injury. There's the year lost to injury. Then there was the bad year after he was coming back, and then he's been
three other good
ones. That's about all you can really expect out of a closer.
Exactly. I agree with that. So we're going to have author Jane Levy on the podcast next. Well, we're going to record in the next few days, and we'll probably drop a separate podcast for that, and we'll do a quick This Week in Baseball podcast
right, the pennant race
for next weekend. So we can't not do a This Week in Baseball next week. We'll do a short one. But and we've both read Jane's book, and she is, her book is I Know What's Wrong with Baseball and How to Fix It.
Right, and why she should
be commissioner.
Right.
is the book, and she went through a portion of the book where she talked about protecting young arms, and she's talking about the fact that they were telling her that 12-year-olds are asking how fast they're throwing on the Raider gun, and you say, okay, this is definitely something that's wrong with baseball.
I will say, pause. When I was 12. I asked how fast I was throwing.
We didn't have radar guns.
Yeah, but I wanted to know. Every 12-year-old wants to know.
And when you were pitching, you went to a showcase or two a long time ago. I don't know if it was run by Perfect Game. I don't remember.
I think it was Top 100.
So Perfect Game is a showcase company, and basically they put on events all over the United States to try to bring in young talent and evaluate young talent. And so if you are somebody on the rise in baseball and you're in high school, you are going to these places at Perfect Game events.
There's Perfect Game and then there's Driveline.
Well, Driveline is a sort of a training ground. So let's stay with Perfect Game. So Perfect Game has been around since 2007. So that obviously wasn't top 100. I think you're right that it was that. And basically he started Driveline. I'm sorry, that's my mistake.
Perfect Game started in 1997 and turned into the 2001. And they're mostly just they are a standardized workout so that players can come in and get a profile, and that helps colleges recruit them. So they're really big because there are over 13,000 people that have attended perfect game workshops have ended up getting drafted into the major
Yes.
leagues. So in terms of a scouting thing, this is probably what the average baseball player in America, this is where they're going to get scouted. Unless you're actually truly a superstar, this is where you're going to end up at perfect game.
And so it's expensive to go to these showcases, and so one of the other things that Jane talks about in her book, and we'll talk with her about this, is that where is it getting too expensive for just a guy who might be talented, who doesn't have the money to do these things and get a chance to show their stuff. You need a patron.
Well, only if you want to go to these things, because it's the same way like with Driveline, which is much more about training facilities. 10% of the major league players have used this place since it opened. So clearly this is where it's going. And that's going to be the difference. It's not the access to the perfect game thing, because put enough good enough tape up in high school and colleges will come and find you. But what you're not going to have as maybe a less privileged player is the chance to go to Driveline and be doing their weighted ball throwing routine, having all the research driven data that's being given to you. Nobody's taking a video of your pitching biomechanics and being like, hey, if you did this, you would throw harder. And that's a big leg up that people are going to have because they have money.
So Perfect Game, I'll go back to that for just a second. They are the most comprehensive scouting organization with 2,369 major league players, and over 15,000 draft selections have gone to Perfect Game showcases. So that is the standard there. Whereas on the part of Driveline, you have major league players now that are going to train at Driveline. It's in Washington, I think, and 10% of major league players have used the training facility since it opened in 2009. So they're using it to learn more about their games in the off season. And so then you've got the kids, obviously looking to emulate, what these guys are doing. And so they go in there and and they get all this data and understanding of what their swing is doing. And then it's very technical. If you're 17 years old and they're telling you all this stuff, and it's no longer see the ball, hit the ball.
No. You're getting way more data. You're getting training that even guys 60 years old, they didn't get in the pros. You're getting information in a different way. And that's for both swinging the bat and throwing the ball.
Right. Pitch design, swing design.
Right.
Actionable insights that you're getting so you can understand, what pitches that you have, what kind of break on your pitches you're getting. Again, I wonder about being 17 years old and pitching into that, because data is a great thing, but there's such a thing as too much data for a kid to try to process to figure out what he's doing.
The data on what's it doing to these kids' bodies trying to throw in this fashion, especially when they're not major league players and they don't have all of the major league workout routines and nutrition that they're doing in order to support working out like this. Like, think about it, these kids might show up at this training facility, put their arm through a grueling workout, and then just go home and play Fortnite like a regular 14-year-old.
And here's the thing that really troubles me, so we've learned already, like if you're a kid, you're going to obviously Perfect Game showcases, or even in Driveline, you're trying to get a few more miles an hour on your fastball, obviously, because you hit 95 and all of a sudden you are somebody that that's like, okay, we got to pay attention to this guy, he's throwing 95. But we've seen major league pitchers, we've got a few of them here in New York, if you throw 100 miles an hour and you throw it straight, these guys hit it.
Right. And these kids aren't fully grown. And if they're pushing their bodies to try and throw 95, for every success story there has to be also ones where these kids' bodies break down in a way because they just couldn't support throwing the ball like that.
Now, we'll talk to Jane next week when we do the podcast, and she had some very interesting observations about some of the changes they're trying to make to try to dial back some of the pitchers, and we're not going to give it away here.
Yeah, there's some interesting ideas out there.
Some really interesting ideas. So I think the training grounds and all that. It's really hard for an heralded guy. I think she made the point that there's one guy who didn't go to any of the showcases, didn't do anything, this just came through school and has made it now into the pros. But he is the
outlier,
the unicorn, whereas everybody else has got all this data attached to them, and I don't know how you put the genie back in the bottle.
Well, because at the end of the day, talent is what's going to makes it to the major leagues. But if you have two guys that are equally talented, except one grew up with the resources to teach him how to hone that talent, he's going to be the more polished player at 17.
Perfect Game and Driveline, folks. Check it out.